And I believe that the Congress is busily enacting specific laws and provisions for the benefit of the veterans. But I really don't know any particulars on this, and I don't know that this is necessarily has been or will be an issue, because I feel that certainly both men would feel the same way, that the veterans who have served the country over in Vietnam, particularly disabled ones, should certainly have every opportunity. And I know particularly the drug persons that are coming back with drug problems and the like, the hospitals are being expanded, and there's all kinds of extra money being allocated for these purposes. But I don't think that this has become a campaign issue.
It's all right. Thank you very much, Charlie Gentz, George Niesma, my good friend Congressman Rooney, Auditor General Casey, Grace Sloan, the famous state treasurer who has all the money. We love to be traveling with her. Senator Reedman, all the distinguished public officials here in the audience this morning, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be back in the greater Lehigh Valley area for the 7th time, Fred Rooney tells me. I'm particularly happy that it's the 7th time because we've named our airplane that we're very happy to be traveling on. We've called it the Lucky 7 because I was the 7th choice for vice president. It also happens that there are 7 of us in our family, 5 children, my wife and I. And November the 7th is the day on which we're going to win. So I think it's providential that I'm here for the 7th time, and I'm happy to say that it was just 12 years ago that my brother-in-law, President Kennedy, was here in Bethlehem.
And he spoke, as you know, in the main square,
and the place was packed. Now, this isn't as big as the main square, but it's packed, and I'm very happy. As one of my friends told me, Fred, this morning, that when the first carpenter came to Bethlehem about 2,000 years ago, the scriptures tell us that he went to register. And I'm sure that when he did, it was to register as a Democrat. And it's very appropriate also that just a minute ago I was given a piece of that AFL Committee on Political Action literature that's supposed to be in the basement somewhere, Charlie. This one got out of the basement, and I want to subscribe to everything that's in this literature. First of all, it starts off talking about the president's record on jobs. Then it goes to prices. Then it talks about taxes. And then it talks about profits and wages. Well, the truth is, and you know it better than I, that under Nixon, unemployment in our nation has doubled. Here in this area, it's gone from 1.8%, which is where it was when Lyndon Johnson left office, up to 4.4% today. That's more than doubling. So you know what Nixon prosperity means in the greater Lehigh Valley. It means maybe triple the number of people out of jobs. It means also double the number of people nationwide on welfare. And that means more taxes for everybody who has to pay for the cost of welfare. Here's a man who has put more people out of work and more people onto welfare than any president since Herbert Hoover. And I think we ought to do exactly with him what we did with Herbert Hoover. In addition to keeping Social Security payments down, which is hard enough for the elderly, Nixon has permitted the health costs to the elderly to go through the roof. Older people require more medical attention and drugs, prescriptions and so on than most others, and it's therefore tragic that a visit to a doctor, for example, has gone up 27%. The cost of a hospital room, even a semi-private ward arrangement in a hospital, has gone up 47%. A hospital bed, which cost $37 a day in 1969, costs $90 a day today. Prescription drugs have gone up tremendously. Even aspirin is up 12%. I said last night you can't even afford to get a headache under Nixon. Although, my God, we're getting plenty of headaches under him. So that the burdens of this inflation bear very heavily on the elderly. And Nixon opposes help to the elderly. In fact, if you study his legislative record, you'll see this. You'll see that nearly every time when it's a question of legislation for the benefit of people, Nixon is on the other side. Beginning way back in 1946, he voted against the Taft-Hartley bill. Excuse me, he voted for the Taft-Hartley bill. He voted for the Landrum-Griffin bill. When he was Vice President of the United States and was sitting in the chair, he cast a vote to break the tie in favor of the most onerous provisions of the Landrum-Griffin bill. He's voted against minimum wage legislation. He's voted against the 40-hour week. He voted against Medicare and Medicaid. Right now, his administration is against health security. The bill proposed by my brother-in-law, Ted Kennedy, which would bring health security to people just the way Social Security was brought to them under Franklin Roosevelt. Nixon has voted against legislation which would have given jobs to the returning veterans from Vietnam. So that today, right now, in the United States, there's 310,000 veterans of Vietnam standing in line looking for jobs. You don't have to go far. Nearly any state employment agency or federal employment agency will have a roster of returned veterans who don't have jobs. And I say it is a tragedy, not only compounded because the war has been continued,
but quadrupled, that the men who fought out there
and have been wounded out there are back here now standing on the equivalent of a modern breadline. That is completely scandalous conduct by this administration, and it's got to be changed. Speech was the kind of a speech, and his appearance was the kind of appearance that we expect from a president of the United States.
I'd like to ask what you feel the Harris poll has shown.
Well, it's shown what the situation was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it shows what people are willing to tell a pollster, which is not the same as what happens when they go into the voting booth and vote the way they want to.
From your own travels around the country, what would you set the percentages at?
I don't know what the percentage is at, but I know the enthusiasm quotient has gone way up, and that's what wins elections. I'm very pleased this morning with this reception here in the Bethlehem area, Allentown, and I'm sure that it's just typical of what's happening all over America. Last night, the same thing happened in Harrisburg at the Democratic Convention. It happened the day before in New Kensington outside of Pittsburgh. It's happening in Philadelphia. And I think there's no question about the fact that with organized labor, with the minorities, and with the political leadership of our party united now in the month of October, we're going to come down to November 7th charging like those bulls you see on that Merrill Lynch ad. That's the way we're going to come over there.
I gather that as far as big business is concerned, and also the top of the AFL-CIO, that this was an indictment on George Meany.
No, it wasn't an indictment of George Meany. It was just a statement that labor is going to be for McGovern Shriver, regardless of whether one man, whether it's I.W. Abel or George Meany, says today that they want to be neutral. I'll add one thing to that. I think that when George Meany and I.W. Abel go into the voting booth on November the 7th, they're going to pull the lever for George McGovern and Sergeant Shriver. They're not going to vote for Nixon.
Thank you.